The Mets and the Rangers pulled off one of the weirdest trades that we have seen in quite some time. We're going to talk about this trade, what it means for the Rangers, and if the Mariners could pull off a trade like this at some point this offseason. We're going to give you guys our FanDuel favorites before we talk about two former Mariners that have had some trade packages out there in the ether. And we're going to talk about both those trade packages, whether or not we would do it, and if those players are even fits. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 252 of the Hit It Here podcast, part of the Bleav Network and presented by FanDuel. And this is the Emerson Hancock episode of the podcast. The Hancocks just had a baby recently, so congratulations to them. Also, you know what? Why not the George Kirby episode? He got engaged. So shout out to the boys just over the offseason, you know, kind of just getting some things done. So super excited to see that. And I am here with a very sleepy Joe. Joe, how are we doing today?
Sleepy? Nah, could not be me being sleepy. I'm fantastic. Not, not having as exciting of an off season as say George Kirby or Emerson Hancock in that regard as far as life events, very exciting for them, but yeah, man. The first real kind of like a wait, this is real trade or move of the offseason happened today.
Mm-hmm.
Chev Bassin dropped a bomb in the middle of my day, and I saw, I think it was Cespedes Family Barbecue likened it to, this is the most NBA like trade the MLB has seen in a while, and it is absolutely true. Like, you don't see trades like this happen in baseball super often, but it's a doozy, and it's one that, yeah, it's more like an NBA trade than anything that we've seen in a long time in baseball. But it's the Mets and the Rangers linking up to trade maybe some damaged goods on both sides to try and see if like a change of scenery works for one side, and maybe they can get like, it's weird. Why would the Mets be interested in trading away Brandon Nimmo, someone that has been a part of their organization his entire career? They inked him to an 8-year, $162 million contract extension 3 off seasons ago. This is a guy that, whether or not he's at the top end of the outfield, I guess, echelon in Major League Baseball, one that you could probably pencil in for like 20 homers and 90 RBI, like in a good offensive year, and like decent-ish defense in a corner every single season. Like, he is an above average player. He is kind of like, I don't know, a more into his career, maybe a more accomplished, longer, has done it for a longer time than Taylor Ward. Kind of underrated corner outfielder offensive wise. And you trade him to the Rangers for Marcus Semien, who for a while has been one of the more accomplished, better at his position, second baseman in Major League Baseball for quite some time. Used to be a MVP candidate at the shortstop position back with the Athletics and the Blue Jays. Signed a big contract with the Rangers going into the 2022 season, and well, it's kind of gone downhill a little bit. The bat has completely let, like, his ability offensively, he's a shell of his former self. So why would the Mets be interested in this contract? And frankly, I don't have a good answer. If it's maybe assuming he's going to bounce back offensively, again, a change of scenery, a change of pace, other players around him in a Mets uniform to maybe kind of rekindle a little clear to the offense there, like something like that for Marcus Semien, because the glove is still there. Zip's projections had him at still a 3.5 win player, and that's still assuming his regression offensively isn't necessarily a fluke. And that's still a good baseball player, but the amount of money that he was owed, 3.5 wins at second base, it gets a little tricky with how expensive he was. But what a doozy of a trade that kind of opens up a can of worms, opens up Pandora's box of the offseason of how kooky can trades get this offseason. Because this is not that it's not so far out of the stretch of the imagination to, like, as far as like value going back on either side is concerned, because the Rangers are getting some salary relief over the next couple of years. And although they have to pay Nimmo for longer than Semien, it's more so in the here and now that they're getting at salary relief. So a team that wants to cut back on their payroll, that makes sense. But again, if they, I would be very surprised if they're going to be paying Brandon Nimmo until 2030 something. Like until
Yeah,
he's like 38.
2030.
Yeah.
Yep.
Until he's like, and they're going to be paying him like an amount of money that he frankly probably won't be worth at that point in time, assuming regression will find him. But what do you make of this blockbuster kind of opening up the floodgates for trades this offseason?
This trade reminds me of another trade from years past that involved the Rangers' second baseman of Ian Kinsler, traded for Prince Fielder.
Mm.
Another one that was just like, a couple of major league guys who not like there's no like one guy sucks and the other one's better. Like it's really hard to say. And in this situation, yeah, you look at the offensive numbers and you say Nimmo is the better player than Marcus Semien right now. Nimmo plays a corner outfield spot. Marcus Semien plays second base and shortstop. Like much more premium positions than a right field spot.
Sure.
Now, when you look at the Mets side of things, Jeff McNeil and whatnot, like how are things going to work out? Is he going to be playing more of the outfield now with Nimmo being gone? The way that I look at this is I think there had to have been some sort of falling out in that clubhouse with Brandon Nimmo. And that made the Mets feel a little bit more motivated to trade him. Because in a situation with the Mets where they're going to be okay with adding however much salary, that's just the way they are. They're going to add however much salary it's going to take. Adding Marcus Semien, a guy who won a Gold Glove last year, you're going to have him for $26 million in 2026, $26 million in 2027, and $20 million in 2028 at the age of 37. So yeah, you have him on the books for about $70 million over the next 3 years, whereas Nimmo over the next 5 years is on the books for about $100 million. So it's a situation where, and obviously we're going to look mostly at the Rangers because they're in our division. What do the Rangers now do at second base? And that's something I find interesting. Do they pivot and go knocking on Jorge Polanco's door? Like that's another team that can now look to someone like Jorge Polanco to fill that spot. Do they have someone in house that I'm just not thinking of right now? More than likely, yeah, probably. Brandon Nimmo probably takes over for Adolis Garcia
Mm-hmm.
out there in right field. He's probably the leadoff hitter for the Rangers in 2026, at least to begin the year. Yeah, it's an interesting deal because, again, Nimmo on the year last year hit 262, 324, 436 with a 114 OPS plus. He hit 25 homers that year or last year as well. But at the same time, Semien, who had a down year, he only had a 97 OPS plus, 230, 305, 364. He hit a total of 15 home runs. And also, Semien had trouble staying healthy in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is a tough question when you look at these two players. What does this mean for a team like the Rangers? What are they going to do now? I'm not sure. But also, this trade, could the Mariners potentially be looking to make a trade similar to this? Now, the Mariners don't necessarily have a player like Marcus Semien who's making a ton of money, who's maybe struggling a little bit, change of scenery guy. They don't have that player. The closest thing they have is Randy Arozarena, and you're probably not going to trade him in that scenario. Could it be Luis Castillo that you're trading for? You trade Luis Castillo for maybe like a number 4 or 5 in someone's rotation that's a little bit more cost controlled, maybe. But other than that, like I can't really think of a guy on this roster right now that you can equate to this trade other than Randy and Luis. That's really all I can think of.
You don't really have, I think, on either front where you're looking at who's the Marcus Semien, is there a Brandon Nimmo? There really isn't. And I think that is kind of fortuitous for the Mariners in some regard of like, it doesn't feel like they have damaged goods that they're trying to trade away, or maybe you're trying to buy low on someone with a guy that maybe you're trying to sell high on necessarily. As far as really quickly, the second base spot for the Rangers, assuming Corey Seager stays healthy, I imagine Josh Smith probably jumps into that role. He's filled in well for them in the last couple of years when injuries have kind of come about. So I would assume he's there. I think they still have his Ezekiel Duran. So
Right.
there's some like utility infielders, but their top prospect, I think he's their top prospect, Sebastian Walcott, should see Major League Baseball next year. I would imagine he plays second base. He plays at the middle. So I would assume that this trade could be kind of clearing the path for him a little bit more, which is something to consider. But again, if you're looking at the sum of Smith, Duran, and Walcott, if they stay within house versus what you might have gotten for out of Semien in 2026 or what you could get on the free agent market, I don't know if I don't really anticipate them signing someone or trade. I mean, if they trade for someone, maybe it's a like half year, 1 year stopgap kind of guy, or if they sign someone, it's that similar situation to just maybe allow a softer landing for Walcott at second base. But I imagine what you're looking at for the Rangers for the next handful of years is they're going to see what they're going to get out of Walcott at second base, and pick your poison. Would you want whatever combination of production you get out of Smith, Duran, and Walcott at second, or are you going to bank on Marcus Semien's bat completely being toast for the rest of his career? I don't know as far as what you're looking at for the Mariners perspective, what might be better if you're just hoping that the down spiral for Semien has kind of caught up to him after he's been one of the most dependable leadoff hitters as far as just ripping plate appearances. I mean, played all 162 games, or he led Major League Baseball in games played. So 162 in 2019, 2021, and 2023. In 2022, he played 161 games, led the American League. And then all 4 of those years led the American League in plate appearances, all with 720 or above. Like, the Mets are going to, I doubt they're going to have him lead off, but they're getting a guy that has gone out there and just went to battle for 720 plate appearances multiple seasons. So it's an interesting trade. And as far as the Mariners are concerned, I just don't see, this is not the type of trade the Mariners are going to make.
Right.
Which
not at this time anyway.
Not at this time, sure. There's not really someone that fits the same mold. And that's not to say that the Mariners won't make trades, because that's, causation without correlation. They're not the same conversation. It's just when we're looking at this trade in a vacuum, you look at, what could my team trade to another team for XYZ? And the Mariners simply don't have something that super equates to this trade between the Rangers and the Mets. And you mentioned, what does it mean for Jeff McNeil on the Mets? I think that's a player that has been, long been in conversation as far as being a trade candidate to the Mariners. Maybe it's Luis Castillo to the Mets for Jeff McNeil and some other thing, right? If it's one of their, I don't know what starting pitcher makes sense on their side. If it's David Peterson, who I
love David Peterson, so I'm in.
I think that's probably too rich on the Mets side as far as the Mariners are concerned. So you have to add another thing going back to New York. So it's very early on in trying to navigate what teams are going to operate in which trade markets, but you'd have to be silly to not assume that Jerry Dipoto is not going to get involved in the trade market at some point. It's as big of a slam dunk bet as you could take this entire offseason. And quickly, a word from FanDuel. Thank you to FanDuel for being a sponsor for the Hit It Here podcast. The FanDuel Sportsbook, the home of the same game parlay, is your go-to destination for online sports gambling this season. Obviously, the baseball season's over, but the NBA is in full swing. The NFL's in full swing. You've got college football, you got hockey, you got college basketball. There's a variety of different sports that you can bet on over on the FanDuel Sportsbook. And right now, if you bet $5, you could get $150 in bonus bets if you win. That's over on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Remember to do it responsibly. And now back to the podcast. Now, another slam dunk that you could assume that will happen all offseason is Bleacher Report coming up with some asinine takes. And the most recent one is the Mariners being the second most likely landing spot for a trade partnership with the Brewers for, as Colton noted, former Mariner Freddy Peralta. And I wouldn't be mad about having Freddy Peralta on the Seattle Mariners in 2026. I don't think many teams would be mad about having Freddy Peralta on their team, except for maybe the Brewers because they're silly. Top 5 in Cy Young this past season, only making $8 million next
$8
year
million
for sign me up. But the cost that Bleacher Report came up with for a singular year of Freddy Peralta, we're in the weeds as far as trade rumors and roster baiting is concerned. Colton, Bleacher Report is sending Michael Arroyo Ryan Sloan and Michael Morales to Milwaukee for 1 year of Freddy Peralta, albeit a very cost efficient 1 year. Like that is as good of a $8 million buy as you're going to get as far as the pitching market is likely concerned. However, I don't think it really lines up with the Mariners' philosophy around what that trade would look like on their end. Personally, I'm okay with trading Arroyo. In the right package, I'm okay with trading Sloan, and I'm of course okay with trading Michael Morales. I don't think I do it for 1 year of Freddy Peralta, personally. And I could be wrong. I could be silly. It makes you better in 2026, undoubtedly. And they go on to state how if you acquire Freddy Peralta, it makes it a lot easier to trade Luis Castillo, and then you can free up more money, and then you can sign more free agents. You know, it's just this slippery slope of freeing up money and spending more. But I really don't see how this would come to fruition from the Mariners side from Bleacher Report personally. And I don't know if you're feeling the same way, but let me know if I'm out of my depths not wanting to trade Arroyo, Sloan, and Morales for 1 year of Peralta.
No, you're absolutely not. And also, I don't think the Brewers are going to trade Freddy Peralta until it maybe if they're out of it at the deadline. But they're a team that's still very much in the hunt. Like next year, they were a playoff team this year. They're a team that very easily could find their way back into the playoffs in 2026. They're a good ball club, and I don't understand how trading Freddy Peralta immediately makes you worse if you are the Brewers, and especially with that package you're acquiring, none of those guys help you in 2026. It makes zero sense. Bleacher Report, listen, I love them because they give us something to talk about. I hate them because they're really bad at their jobs.
Or maybe they're really good at it because they're just trying to clickbait.
I mean, hey, that is true. You know what? Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Game's the game, baby.
The game's the game. Let me ask you two questions here. One, let's see if you know ball.
I don't know what trade it was.
You don't.
Adam Lind.
Yeah, it was Adam Lind.
Cool.
One of Jerry DiPoto's first trades as Mariners GM. They traded an 18 or maybe even a 16-year-old Freddy Peralta for Adam Lind back in, I think, 2016? December 2015. That is like 3 months after DiPoto took over.
Yeah.
And he traded Freddy Peralta, who in 2025 was an all-star, had a 2.7 ERA and 176 innings pitched. He had an ERA plus of 154. Now, again, it's basically impossible to know a guy that's 18, if he's going to turn into that. And also different times, right? You were with a roster that had Robinson Cano, Nelson Cruz, all these guys. You wanted to add an impact left-handed bat, and they were hoping Adam Lind would be that. He wasn't, although he still is the author of one of my first ever walk-off home run that I witnessed in person. So,
yep.
Against the Chicago White Sox, I screamed obscenities about the White Sox when that happened. But number two, if this trade was instead Michael Arroyo, Michael Morales still, and say, oh goodness, like Emerson Hancock.
Yes.
That like you're in? But
yeah.
I mean, the Brewers are going to say no to either trade, in my opinion.
Sure.
But like if it was like Hancock, and then you throw in like some guy in the teens in terms of prospect ranking.
Okay.
Like I think that replacing Ryan Sloan, who obviously is a better prospect than Hancock or Evans, take your pick. And then, some guy in the teens who I don't care who. Like, does that change the way you look at it? Is Ryan Sloan the big hang up for you in this trade?
Yes, absolutely. He, to me, is a very specific trade proposal that I am not using the rise of Ryan Sloan as leverage in a trade to acquire 1 year of Freddy Peralta. Quite just being honest. And I think there's a time and a place like to utilize a prospect of that caliber who is in the top 3 in the Mariners organization across a handful of different like prospect ranking outlets. He's a top 5 guy in I think every single one of them. If not, I don't know what we're doing. He looks like every bit of a future ace, and he is still very young. Like he has still time to develop and grow into whatever 6'4" frame he's gonna have by the time, and he's still gonna be throwing 100 miles an hour in 2-3 years. Like this looks like if he's still a Mariner in 2027. You're looking at opening day rotation of, depending on whether or not certain guys get extended, whatever, but like it's Wu, it's Anderson, and it's Sloan would be like your likely top 3 guys, assuming you don't have any like assuming like Gilbert regresses in some capacity, like age starts, whatever, innings and everything like that. But Sloan looks like a top of the like frontline rotation guy, and trading him for 1 year of Freddy Peralta simply just doesn't make sense to me. Swapping him out for a guy that's closer to Major League ready, or is Major League ready, like Hancock or Evans, and then maybe the Brewers would want a lottery pick, but they won't, because they're a team that every single year they're like, hey, we're competitive in the Central again. By the way, we traded our closer. We're still good. Hey, we traded our closer again. By the way, still good. Like, we traded a Cy Young Award winner. We're still okay. Like, we'll be fine. Somehow, some way, the Brewers, land on top in the Central. And would trading Freddy Peralta prevent them from doing that again next year? No, not necessarily, because again, they somehow, some way just figure it out. And I agree with your sentiment about like this prospect package doesn't make sense for them in a competitive window, but I don't think that's like necessarily, that wouldn't stop them. But also, if you sub out Sloan for 2 pieces that maybe are close-ish in value that help them, one now and then 2 years down the line, I still assume that they probably say no.
What if instead of Sloan, it's just Durangelo Sanger?
I mean,
It,
I would
does that
rather
make the difference?
I would do that, but I also still don't know if they would want that. Like,
Right.
I'm not the Brewers. Clearly,
What?
I am not a Major League Baseball franchise.
You look like Bernie Brewer to me.
Could be. I've never been in the same room with him, so I'm not willing to rule it out completely, but I am not them. Yeah, it seems almost nonsensical to just like, oh, what if it's Sanger? I don't think it matters for either team. I assume the Mariners would not want to do that, and then the Brewers equally would be like, that doesn't really like move the needle. I would say that the Brewers could take this because it's Ryan. Like, I think Ryan Sloan is that much more of a higher value pitching prospect than Durangelo Sanger, as far as what you could see getting out of him for the years that you're going to have him club controlled, because God knows they're not going to extend or retain either top pitching prospect that you trade them, when their service time is up.
Yeah, I mean, the way you look at it, right? Corbin Burns gone. Brandon Woodruff accepted the qualifying offer, which I think was to a lot of people's surprise. So he's still going to be there. Obviously, with Freddy, it's a situation where I cannot see a world where they would do it, unless you are absolutely blowing them out of the water. Because again, you are not going to get a better pitcher for $8 million than Freddy Peralta in 2026. You're not, unless it's on a 1 year, like last year of a deal. Obviously, Paul Skeens is making the minor or major league minimum, right? But that's obviously a different story. You're not going to be able to get a pitcher on the free agent market that is better than Freddy Peralta for $8 million. And that's why I just don't see a world where they decide to do this. It just makes no sense from the Brewers' perspective, in my opinion. But hey, that's Bleacher Report. Now, there was one other trade that had a pretty similar package, actually, at least involving Ryan Sloan. And this one, I think, is a little bit more interesting. Now, this comes from Just Baseball. And the Mariners are acquiring Ketel Marte, who we've talked about recently, obviously former Mariner, for Cole Young, Ryan Sloan, and Emerson Hancock. Now, this trade, and we've talked about, Ketel's money and whatnot, so we're not going to really get into that here. But this trade makes a lot more sense, in my opinion, for both sides. The Diamondbacks probably need to kind of change some things up with that team after what we saw in 2025. And for the Mariners, you obviously it'd be a bummer to lose Cole Young, but you're getting arguably the best second baseman over the past couple of years in baseball to replace Cole Young. Yes, giving up Ryan Sloan sucks for all the reasons that you just mentioned, and then Emerson Hancock, which whatever. I personally think that the Diamondbacks will want more in this deal, but the Mariners would be taking on a lot of money in this situation.
Yeah.
So that kind of muddies the waters a little bit because we know the Mariners, depending on, what they have to play with. And to be fair, from a recent interview with Ryan Divish that was put out by the Locked On Mariners, he said he thinks the Mariners have closer to $40 to $50 million to play with than the like 20 to 30 that we thought they had this offseason.
Yeah.
So, maybe that changes the algorithm a little bit, but overall, I think that the Diamondbacks would want more, and it just makes things really, really confusing in terms of where your payroll's at.
For the Divish stuff, that is not including the Naylor contract.
Right.
Like, so it's 40 to 50 million. Now you sign Naylor, it's closer to, now 30 to 40 remaining, essentially.
Right.
And then for Ketel, money owed, it's like 6 years, 120 million roughly. I think it's a little bit less than that, but imagine, you're paying Ketel Marte for the next 6 years an annual average of 18.5 million. What you're paying Josh Naylor. Are you okay with that? I think you absolutely are. When we talked about Ketel in the last time, we mentioned, or not we, I mentioned not necessarily, I mentioned injury history, but they're more so just like little like tack on injuries. Like you miss 30 games, 40 games in the season, and how that could affect his health going forward if those continue to add up. Of course, that's never a guarantee. If you're getting 120 to 130 games out of Ketel Marte every year for, about 16 or about $18 million, $19 million, I think you take that every day of the week because, like you mentioned, he's been probably the best second baseman in all of baseball. And if not the best second baseman, the best offensive second baseman in all of baseball. Like, he's been a top 10 hitter across all of baseball over the last 2 seasons just by WRC plus alone. I mean, he was an MVP candidate before he got injured at the end of, it was 2024, right? Got injured towards the end of the year and kind of lost some of his momentum, but he was still, I think, MVP 3 in the previous year. So Ketel Marte, aka Jorge Polanco plus, yes, you take what you absolutely take that to the bank. And of course it sucks, like you said, giving up Cole Young, but if you have, who would you rather have on your team for the next 6 years? Cole Young or Ketel Marte? It's not that easy of an equivalence because one, you're going to be paying that one of those players league minimum, ARB 1, ARB 2, ARB 3, ARB 4. The other, you're going to be paying pretty much a flat, AAV of about 19 million. There's a little bit of a difference there, of course. But is the value you're going to get out of Ketel Marte going to be that much more than Cole Young? I wouldn't be necessarily surprised. And I'm not wanting to, move off of Cole Young. We're ready to get rid of Cole because, his bad, over, 3 for 57 down the stretch or whatever. I don't care what the numbers are. No, it's not that you're moving off of Cole Young because he had you don't trust him. It's that you're getting freaking Ketel Marte. That's the difference. And I mentioned, Sloan is a very specific trade package, whatever. This is a player that you trade Ryan Sloan for. A Ketel Marte, a Jose Ramirez, a Fernando Tatis Jr., a very top level MLB talent, an elite player that's going to go out there and be a perennial all-star for you, assuming they're healthy and competing. You trade Ryan Sloan for that. And could the Diamondbacks want more? I wouldn't go much more, but I mean, I'm not going to lose sleep over trading Cole Young, Ryan Sloan, and Emerson Hancock for the best second baseman now in your league, since if it was once Semien in the American League, he's now in the National League. I'm very okay with that trade for Ketel Marte.
Let me tell you, 2015 me would have gone crazy hearing you compare him to Fernando Tatis and to Jose Ramirez. I would have been giddy because I got that man's jersey. After all 57 games he played at the age of 21, I bought that man's jersey. But Yeah, you look at his WAR, his B WAR over the past 3 years. It's been over 4. I mean, it was 6.8 in 2024 during that MVP 3 season. Um, Now he's probably not going to win you a Gold Glove over
Mm-mm.
there at second base, but I mean, neither is Jorge Polanco. So it's a situation where when you're trading someone of Ryan Sloane's pedigree, and again, I think there are only a few guys that I would deem relatively untouchable in the Mariners system. Sloan is right on the bubble. Like he's like untouchable, but like you mentioned in the right trade, Colt Emerson's untouchable. You are
Yeah.
not trading Colt Emerson. Um, I view
Paul
Kate
Skeens.
Anderson. Yeah, not doing it. I view Cade Anderson as pretty much untouchable just because of what we saw from him in the College World Series. I mean, me, personal bias, I view Lazaro Montes as
Yeah.
untouchable. But other than that, Ryan Sloan, like those four guys, I think are the only guys that I am afraid that I would be worried about trading. Cole Young, you know, it sucks, but like you mentioned, you are acquiring Ketel Marte. You're not moving off of Cole Young. You have to bite the bullet sometimes to go out there and get a player of this pedigree because the Mariners' window is right now. And sure, could Cole Young in a couple of years be better than Ketel Marte? Absolutely. And I wouldn't even be shocked about it because Ketel's getting older. He's 30, he'll be 32 in 2026. The contract runs through his age, I think 38 or 37 or 38 season.
Mhm.
Whereas Cole, over the next 6 years, you'd have him kind of getting right into his prime. Yeah, I completely expect Cole Young to be a better player than Ketel Marte in 4 or 5 years' time. But where are the Mariners at in 4 or 5 years? I don't know. The time is now. Like the time for the Mariners to go out there and try to win this whole freaking thing. It's right now. We saw it last year. You have Josh Naylor for the next 5 years. You have Cal Raleigh for the next 5 or 6 years. Who knows what's going to happen with Logan? Who knows what's going to happen with George? There are a lot of moving parts in that 4 or 5 years where you don't know what's going to happen. So why not give it your best shot here in the next 4 years with somebody like Ketel Marte playing second base for you every single day? I just think that that is a situation where it immediately makes your team better. And in the long term, do you get worse? Probably. But in the next, you know, handful of years, you are a better baseball team because of it. And that's why you make that trade for Ketel Marte, in my opinion.
You're like slingshotting your win probability. You're moving you're closing the window slightly, but like the wind that's being pushed in is like all that much more. Like you're closing it with force, so like you're naturally pushed. It's a weird physics conversation. We don't need to have it. But yes, you are propelling yourself further into the now and sacrificing. You're saying you're biting the bullet, Colton, like you said. Sometimes you have to bite the bullet for what it looks like in. I mean, it's the conversation we had with Naylor's contract that I don't care what the money looks like in 2030. The fact that it's $11 million in 2026 is awesome. I don't care what the production looks like in 2030. The fact that you have Ketel Marte for 2026 is awesome. Sometimes you have to be willing to operate on the fact that you might be in a loss long term to ensure that you have a better chance at reaching the final goal now. And I think that is precisely what a Ketel Marte, even a Freddy Peralta, although it's a little bit more unlikely because the teams don't match up as well. But like the Ketel one is definitely one that if you're not for it, if you're a little hesitant because maybe the body's wearing down or maybe some of the clubhouse issues that have been kind of documented over the last say like 18 months, maybe that's a cause for concern for you. But sign me up to have Ketel Marte be a Mariner in 2026. I'll do it. I'll pack Ryan's bags right now.
Damn.
I'll take a word out of Colby Patnode's book. I'll pack his bags and drive him to the airport right now.
I think just to bring it full circle here, trading somebody like Ryan Sloan, where he is right now, this is not the same situation, but similar to trading Freddy Peralta for Adam Lind. It's obviously a very different situation where Ryan Sloan is a much more known entity
Sure.
than Freddy Peralta was at the time. And Adam Lind is obviously not Ketel Marte, but you gotta add those finishing pieces,
Mm-hmm.
right? And at the time, the process was good to acquire Adam Lind. Bad result, but good process. This is a situation where, yeah, it could blow up in your face in, 6 years. Does anybody care? Did anybody care in 2016 that we traded Freddy Peralta? No. Do we care now? Sure. Obviously, rose tinted glasses and whatnot.
Hmm.
But for the last however many years, how many of you even knew that Freddy Peralta was a Mariner? In 5 years' time, if you trade Ryan Sloan, I can guarantee that plenty of people will have no idea he was in the Mariners system.
Yeah.
They're like, oh yeah, he came up with the Diamondbacks. Yeah, it
Wrong.
makes sense. Rug. Yeah, again, it sucks, but it's something when you're in the situation that the Mariners are, you absolutely have to go out there and try to put the finishing touches on your team. And I think Ketel Marte does that. But let us know in the comments down below what you guys think about adding these guys. We appreciate you guys watching episode 251, 252, goodness, of the Hit It Here podcast presented by FanDuel, and go Mariners.